It is one of the most secure structures in the world.
Do you think the gold is at Fort Knox? President Trump's wondering if it is.
Why is everyone suddenly talking about Fort Knox?
We're actually going to Fort Knox because I want to see, do we have the gold? Do we still have whatever it is, tons of gold? I hope we do.
The Fort Knox gold controversy sent the internet into a storm several months ago, and around that time we released a video that explored the strange, unsettling mystery behind this, as well as the fact that no independent audit has been conducted in over 70 years. For the first time in decades, serious questions about America's gold reserves were back in the spotlight, and for a little bit it actually seemed like with the help of Doge, we were finally about to get to the bottom of this mystery. But after all the headlines, tweets, and debates, things went a little quiet. No audit, no answers, just silence. So what actually happened? Did the pressure amount to anything? Has the US Treasury finally agreed to open the vaults? Or like many feared, has the government simply brushed it all under the rug, hoping the world would just move on? Well, not exactly, because while the audit never came, something else did, a strange new development that might be even more telling. The US is now importing more gold than it has in over 20 years, and with prices hitting all-time highs, the timing couldn't be more suspicious. Are they quietly trying to rebuild what's missing, or is this just the first clue that the truth behind Fort Knox is darker than anyone imagined? Well, regardless, we're going to be breaking down where things stand today, as well as why this controversy might be far from over. Because even if the gold is really there, why does it feel like the government is doing everything it can to avoid proving it? Let's find out. Despite all the headlines, outrage, and public pressure, the vault doors at Fort Knox still remain sealed shut. And as of today, an independent audit of the historic facility has still not been conducted. Even Elon Musk's public challenge, backed by Doge and cheered on by millions, has been met with complete silence from the US Treasury. No response, no comment, just the same thick wall of secrecy that's been there for over 70 years. And as time goes on, that silence is starting to speak louder than words. Because if Fort Knox truly holds 147.3 million ounces of gold, as the government claims, why refuse the chance to prove it and instead let the rumors spiral out of control? The longer this drags on without transparency, the more suspicious it starts to look. After all, what could they possibly be hiding anyway? If the gold is truly there, then a Doge-led independent audit could put every question to rest. But the fact that it hasn't happened, along with the reality that the government won't even entertain the idea at all, is a massive red flag. But even though calls for an audit have been met with silence, right now something unusual is happening behind the scenes that is raising even more questions. However, at the same time, it could also potentially be bringing us one step closer to the truth. In early 2025, the United States experienced a significant surge in gold imports. In January alone, imports of gold bars categorized under finished metal shapes for some odd reason increased by $20.1 billion. In fact, recent trade data shows that the United States is now importing more gold than it has in over 2 decades. The biggest suppliers: Switzerland, the United Kingdom, and Australia, known for their deep gold markets and bullion refining industries. In March 2025, Swiss gold imports from the US rose to a 13-month high of 25.5 metric tons, while exports to the United States fell by 32% month on month to 103.2 tons. But here's where things get curious. If Fort Knox really holds the 147.3 million ounces of the gold it claims, why are they suddenly ramping up its gold imports, and what's driving this surge? Well, there are only a few logical explanations. First of these is obviously economic uncertainty. The imposition of tariffs by the Trump administration has led to market instability. Gold prices have surged, briefly reaching over $3,500 per ounce, as investors seek stability amid declining confidence in traditional safe assets like US Treasury bonds and the dollar. The second is strategic hedging. Central banks worldwide have been on a gold buying spree, purchasing more than 1,000 tons annually in recent years. This trend is expected to continue, especially in light of recent economic uncertainties and debasement of the US dollar. Number 3 is physical demand and logistics. The Arger Herus refinery in Switzerland has been operating around the clock due to a surge in demand for 1 kilogram gold bars in New York. This unprecedented demand lasting over 3 months stems from fears of potential tariffs on gold imports by the US, driving gold prices to record highs. Either way, the markets have noticed, and the signals coming from gold's price action may be telling us more than any government statement ever will. And even though the US government continues to stay quiet, the market is making plenty of noise. In recent weeks, gold prices have surged past $3,300 per ounce, shattering previous records and catching the attention of investors worldwide. But this market is not just about speculation. It's being fueled by a perfect storm of real global pressure points. Geopolitical tensions between major powers like Russia, China, and the West continue to escalate, and inflation fears remain high. Also, behind the scenes, central banks in China, India, Turkey, and other nations are stockpiling gold at an aggressive pace, hoarding physical assets as a hedge against uncertainty. With all of this being the case, the message from the market is clear. Gold is once again becoming the ultimate insurance policy. But here's where things get interesting. If Fort Knox's gold reserves are as full as claimed, why would the US need to jump into this gold rush to such an extreme extent at all? On the other hand, if they have been lying, that would mean this price action may be signaling a scramble to catch up before the rest of the world starts asking the same question. Because in a system built on confidence, perception is everything. And right now, the price of gold is telling a story the US Treasury would probably rather not explain. You see, if the US gold reserves aren't what they claim to be, the fallout wouldn't just damage America's reputation. It could shatter the very foundation of global trust in the dollar itself. After all, the United States' economic dominance has long been tied to the perception of strength, stability, and credibility. But if the world's most secure gold vault is exposed as a lie, that credibility crumbles overnight. For starters, US adversaries like China and Russia wouldn't waste a second. They've already been pushing for de-dollarization, seeking to replace the US dollar's dominance with their very own currencies and gold-backed strategies. And an exposed weakness at Fort Knox could be the leverage that they've been waiting for. The results, a potential acceleration of the global shift away from the dollar. Confidence in the US Treasury would collapse, markets would spiral into panic, inflation would surge, and the very system that props up America's financial power would start to unravel, all from a single truth coming to light. This would be so significant, it's not far-fetched to believe that the sitting president himself would hold off on making this a public statement if he knew the truth. For example, what if the gold isn't just lower than claimed? What if it's gone entirely? Now, while that's far-fetched and probably unlikely, in today's financial world, finding trust, transparency, and real value is becoming harder than ever before. That's why our sponsor Kinesis Money was built, a revolutionary monetary system that combines the timeless security of physical gold and silver with the speed and accessibility of modern digital finance. Through Kinesis, every digital token, KAU for gold and KAG for silver, is backed one-to-one by fully allocated physical metals stored securely in insured vaults around the world. It's real value you can spend, send, trade, or hold, all with instant settlement, low fees, and full transparency. While traditional institutions continue to operate in secrecy, such as Fort Knox, which hasn't undergone a full independent audit in over 70 years, Kinesis takes the opposite approach. Every gram backing your wealth is regularly audited, fully verifiable, and fully allocated. With Kinesis, your assets aren't just sitting idle either. Through the Kinesis yield system, you can earn passive income simply by holding, spending, trading, or referring others. It's a model that finally rewards users for participation, not speculation. In a time when global trust in traditional financial systems is eroding, Kinesis is focused on standing apart by offering a fully transparent, asset-backed solution designed for a more honest future. Because real trust isn't built on secrecy, it's built on proof. Real assets, real rewards, real freedom. So if you're ready to change how you use gold and silver, I want you guys to use the code DataDash when you sign up to Kinesis Money, and you will be gifted your very own silver. Once again, sign up with Kinesis money, use code DataDash, and get yourself some silver today. Now, for the sake of entertainment, let's imagine just for a moment that the nightmare scenario is true. The vault doors swing open and the gold is gone. Or maybe it's there, but only a fraction of what the government has claimed for decades. If that were the case, it wouldn't just be a scandal, it would be an economic catastrophe on a global scale. Because without those reserves, the foundation of trust holding up the US financial system would crumble almost overnight. But here's the real question: what would even be the backup plan if the gold isn't there? Well, in a desperate attempt to plug up the holes, the US could pivot to alternative assets like Bitcoin, or maybe a hybrid model that combines digital transparency with whatever hard assets remain. Beyond this, maybe they lean into the narrative of blockchain verifiability, turning to a tokenized gold or even Bitcoin as a modern replacement for the physical bars that were supposed to be locked up away in Fort Knox. In fact, we may already be watching the early stages of this take place. The Trump administration has reportedly begun exploring the idea of a strategic crypto reserve, while heavyweight institutions like BlackRock, armed with deep political connections, continue pushing forward with tokenized real-world assets. This is expected to be the next evolution of the financial infrastructure, with Trump's allies signaling interest in broader blockchain adoption and RWAs making their way into policy discussions. The groundwork for this kind of pivot may already be quietly underway. Regardless, the truth is, even the smallest pivot wouldn't solve the core problem, because trust, once shattered at this level, isn't something that can be simply rebuilt by technology. It would take years, maybe even decades, to rebuild the global confidence that the US dollar and the American economy behind it has depended on for generations. And in the meantime, the damage would already be done, because whether that trust is backed by gold, Bitcoin, or blockchain, at the end of the day, the real reserve asset is belief. And once belief is gone, there's no easy way to get that back. The deeper the secrecy, the louder the questions, and the longer those questions go unanswered, the more dangerous the speculation becomes. It's a paradox as old as power itself. The harder you work to protect trust through control, the faster that trust erodes when transparency is missing. The truth is, the audit could go either way. If Fort Knox is full and the gold is really there, a simple act of verification could restore faith overnight. But if it's not, and even part of the story is a lie, the fallout could be devastating. So this really leaves us with one brutal, uncomfortable question. What's worse, the collapse that comes from telling the truth, or the slow decay of a lie left unspoken? Because at the heart of this controversy isn't just the gold, it's belief. And when belief is the only thing holding the system together, even asking the question becomes dangerous. But at the same point, the question has to be asked, and the longer we wait, the harder it's going to be to believe the answer. But what are your thoughts? Why do you think we haven't done an audit of Fort Knox just yet? Do you think all the gold is there? Do you think President Trump knows the gold isn't there and he's quietly pushed this talking point aside to prevent the United States from having a downfall? Let me know in the comments section below. And if you found this video informative and want to see more videos like this one, be sure to subscribe and give the video a like, and I'll catch you in the next.